daily rains. Fertilizing. Much care is taken in fertilizing the irrigated cementeras. The hog of a few pupas in the Bontoc area, as in Bontoc and Samoki, is kept confined all its life in a walled, stone cave sty dug in the earth, CPL. LXXVII. Into this enclosure dry grasses and dead vines are continually placed to absorb and become rotted by the liquids. As a soil of the cementera is turned for the new rice crop, these pigsties are cleaned out and the rich manure spread on the beds. The manure is sometimes carried by women, though generally by men, and the carriers in a string pass all day between the cementeras and the pueblo, each bearing his transportation basket on his shoulder, containing about 100 pounds of as good fertilizer as agricultural men ever thought to employ. The manure is gathered from the sties with the two hands and is dumped in the cementera in 10-pound piles about 5 feet apart after the soil has been turned and trod soft and even. It is said that in some sections of Icarotland dry vegetable matter is burned so that ash may be used for fertilizing purposes. I have seen women working long, dry grass under the soil in Camote cementeras at the time the crop was being gathered, PL. LXIV, but I believe fertilizers are seldom employed, except where rice is grown. Mountainside cementeras are frequently abandoned after a few years' service, as they are supposed to be exhausted, whereas fertilization would restore them. Seed planting. Panchocan is the name of the cementera used as a rice seed bed. One or more small groups of cementeras in every pueblo is so protected from the cold rains and winds of November and December and is so exposed to the warm sun that it answers well the purposes of a primitive hotbed. Consequently it becomes such, and anyone who asks permission of the owner may plant his seed there, CPL. LXV. The seed is planted in the beds after they have been thoroughly worked and softened, the soil usually being turned 3 times. The planting in Bontoc occurs the first part of November. November 15, 1902, the rice had burst its kernel and was above water in the Bontoc beds. The seed is not shelled before planting, but the full fruit, bands, sinew wide, are laid, without covering, on the soft earth, under 3 or 4 inches of water. They are laid in rows a few inches apart, and are so close together that by the time the young plants are 3 inches above the surface of the water, the bed is a solid mass of green. Bontoc Pueblo has 6 varieties of rice. Neighboring pupas have others, and it is probable that 50, perhaps 100, varieties are grown by the different irrigating peoples of northern Luzon. In Bontoc, Tipa is a white fearless variety. Gosang is white, and Chayadet is claimed to be the same grain, except it is dark-colored. It is a rice from which the fermented beverage, tapui, is made. Puai and Tupang are also white. Tupang is sold in the irrigated mountain cementeras in the rainy season. Gulikai is a dark grain. Camotes, or tiki, are planted once in a long period in the cementeras surrounding the buildings in the pueblo. There is nothing to kill them. The ground has no other use, so they are practically perpetual. The average size of all the 8 varieties of Bontoc camotes is about 2 by 4 inches in diameter. 6 of the varieties are white and 2 are red. The white ones are the following: Linoko, Patiki, Hina Fafai, Paanyet, Kiwang, and Tang Tang Lab. The red ones are Sisig and Pitikan. To illustrate the many varieties which may exist in a small area, I give the names of 5 other camotes grown in the pueblo of Balili, which is only about 4 hours from Bontoc. The Balili white camotes are Bitekno, Ago Bang Bang, and Lamin, and the red are Gizgizai and Tomolo. Millet, called salsa, is sown on the surface of the earth. The sowing is broadcast, but in a limited way, as the fields are usually only a few rods square. The seed is generally sowed by women, who carry a small basketball dish of it in one hand and scatter the seed from between the thumb, forefinger, and middle finger of the free hand. There are 64 varieties of millet in Bontoc. Moody and pointed are light-colored seeds. Haitian is a darker seed, the Eero says black, and Sinang is the fourth. I have never seen it, but I am told it is white. maize, or paki, and beans. Practically the only other seeds planted are planted annually in Ls. The rows of Ls are quite irregular. Maize, as is also millet, is planted immediately after the first abundant rains, occurring early in April. The Bontoc men has 3 varieties of beans. One is called Kalap. The kernel is small, being only 1/5 of an inch long. Usually it is pale green in color, though a few are black. Both have an exterior, white germ. Itap is about 1/3 of an inch long. It is both gray and black in color, and has a long exterior white germ. The third variety is black with an exterior white germ. It is called Malatong, and is about 1/4 of an inch in length. Transplanting. Transplanting is always the work of women, since they are recognized as quicker and more dexterous in most work with the hands than are the men. The women pull up the young rice plants in the seedbeds and tie them in bunches about 4 inches in diameter. They transport them by basket to the newly prepared cylindra and dump them in the water so they will remain fresh. As has been said, the manure fertilizer is placed about the cylindra in piles. The women thoroughly spread the fertilizer with their hands and feet when they transplant CPL. LIX. When the soil is ready, the transplanter grasps a handful of the plants, twists up 3 or 4 inches of the blades, leaving the plant about 6 inches long, and, while holding the plants in one hand, with the other she rapidly thrusts them, one by one into the soft bed. They are placed in fairly regular rows, and are about 5 inches apart. The planter leans enthusiastically over her work, usually resting one elbow on her knee, the left elbow, since most of the women are right-handed, and she sets from 40 to 60 plants per minute. When the cementers are planted they present a clean and beautiful appearance. Even the tips of the rice blades twisted off are invariably crowded into the muddy bed to assist in flattening the crop. As many as a dozen women often work together in one cementer or 2 piece in the planting. There are usually 2 or 3 little girls with their mothers, who while away the hours playing work. They stuff up the chinks of the stone walls with dirt and vegetable matter. They carry together the few commodes discovered in this last handling of the old commode bed. And they quite successfully and industriously play at transplanting rice, though such small girls are not obliged to work in the field. Commodes are also transplanted. The women cut or pick off the runners from the perpetual vines in the cemeteries near the dwellings. These they transplant in the irrigated mountain cemeteries after the crops of millet and maize have been gathered. The irrigated cemeteries are also planted to commodes by transplanting from these house beds. This transplanting lasts about 6 weeks in Bontoc, beginning near the middle of July. Some little sugarcane is grown by the Igorot of the Bontoc area. It is claimed to grow up each year from the roots left at the preceding harvest. At times new patches of cane are started by transplanting shoots from the parent plants. It is said that in January the stalks are cut and set in a rich mud, and that in the season of bellowing, from about July 15th until early in September, the rooted shoots are transplanted to the new beds. Cultivating. The chief cultivation given to Igorot crops is bestowed on rice, though all cultivated lands are remarkably free from weeds. The rice cementers are carefully wooded, suckers are pulled out, and the beds are thin generally, so that each plant will have all needful chance to develop fruit. This weeding and thinning is the work of women and half-grown children. Every day for nearly 2 months, or until the fruit heads appear, the cultivators are diligently at work in the cementeras. No tools or agricultural implements other than their hands are used in this work. The men keep constant watch of the cementera walls and the irrigating canals, repairing all, thus indirectly assisting the women in their cultivation by directing water to the growing crop and by conserving it when it is obtained. Protecting. The rice begins to fruit early in April, at which time systematic effort to protect the new grain from birds, rats, monkeys, and wild hogs commences. This effort continues until the harvest is completed, practically for 3 months. Much of this labor is performed by water power, much by wind power, and about all the children and old people in the pueblo are busy from early dawn until twilight in the cementeria as independent guards. Besides, throughout the long night, men and women build fires among the cementerias and guard their crop from the wild hog. It is a critical time with the Igorot. The most natural, simplest, and undoubtedly the most successful protection of the grain is the presence of a person on the terrace walls of the cementeria, whether by day or night. Hundreds of fields are so guarded each day in Bontoc by old people and children, who frequently erect small screens of tall grass to shade and protect themselves from the sun. The next simplest method is one followed by the boys. They employ a hollow section of carbide horn, cut off at both ends and about 8 inches in length. It is called Kongoke. This the boys beat when birds are near, producing an open, resonant sound which may readily be heard a mile. The wind tosses about over the growing grain various scarecrows. The pochek is one of these. It consists of a single large dry leaf, or a bunch of small dry leaves, suspended by a cord from a heavy, coarse grass 6 or 8 feet high. The leaf, the sajiakak, hangs 4 feet above the fruit heads. It swings about slightly in the breeze, and probably is some protection against the birds. I believe it the least effective of the various things devised by the Igorot to protect is rice from the multitudes of teedlin, the small, brown rice bird 25, found broadly over the archipelago. The most picturesque of these wind-tossed bird scares is the kilo. The kilo is a basket-work figure swung from a pole and is usually the shape and size of the distended wings of a large gull, though it is also made in other shapes, as that of man, the lizard, etc. The pole is about 20 feet high, and is stuck in the earth at such an angle that the swinging figure attached by a line at the top of the pole hangs well over the cementeria and about 3 or 4 feet above the grain. CPL. LXBII. The bird-like kilo is hung by its middle, at what would be the neck of the bird, and it soars back and forth, up and down, in a remarkably lifelike way. There are often a dozen kilo in a space 4 rods square, and they are certainly effectual, if they look as bird-like to teedlin as they do to man. When seen a short distance away they appear exactly like a flock of restless gulls turning and dipping in some harbor. Figure 4. Fig 4. Bird scare in rice field. The water-power bird scares are ingenious. Across the shallow, running rapids in the river or canal a line, called paichug, is stretched, fastened at one end to a yielding pole, and at the other to a rigid pole. A bowed piece of wood about 15 inches long and 3 inches wide, called pitug, is suspended by a line at each end from the horizontal cord. This pitug is suspended in the rapids, by which it is carried quickly downstream as far as the elasticity of the yielding pole and the paichug will allow. Then it snaps suddenly back upstream, and is ready to be carried down and repeat the jerk on the relaxing pole. A system of cords passes high in the air from the jerking pole at this stream to other slender, jerk poles among the cementerias. From these poles a low jerking line runs over the cementerias, over which are stretched at right angles parallel cords within a few feet of the fruit heads. These parallel cords are also jerked, and the movement, together with that of the leaves depending from them, is sufficient to keep the birds away. One such machine may send its shock a quarter of a mile and trouble the birds over an area half an acre in extent. Other Igorot, as those of the Upper River in Mukona province, employ the same jerking machine to produce a sharp, clicking sound in the cementeria. The jerking cord repeatedly raises a series of hanging, vertical wooden fingers, which, on being released, fall against a stationary, horizontal bamboo tube, producing the sharp click. These clicking machines are set up on 2 supporting sticks a few feet above the grain every 3 or 4 yards about the cementerias. There are many rodents, rats, and mice, which destroy the glowing grain during the night unless great care is taken to cheat them. The Igorot make a small deadfall which he places in the path surrounding the cementeria. I have seen as many as 5 of these traps on a single side of a cementeria not more than 30 feet square. The tread has a closely woven wooden deadfall, about 10 or 15 inches square. One end is set on the path and the other is supported in the air above it by a string. One end of the string is fastened to a tall stick, planted in the earth. The lower end is tied to a short stick, a part of the string held rigid beneath the deadfall until the trigger is touched. The deadfall drops when the rat, in touching the trigger, releases the lower end of the cord. The animal springs the trigger either by nibbling a bait on it or by running against it, and is immediately killed, since the deadfall is weighted with stones. Cemeteries near some forested mountains in the Bontoc area are pestered with monkeys. Day and night people remain on guard against them in lonely, dangerous places, just the kind of spot the head hunter chooses wherein to surprise his enemy. All border cemeteries in every group of fields are subject to the night visits of wild hogs. In some areas commanding piles of earth or outlooks are left standing when the cemeteries are constructed. In other places outlooks are erected for the purpose. Permanent shelters, some of them commodious stone structures, are often erected on these outlooks where a person remains on guard night and day. Alex VIII, at night burning a fire to frighten the wild hogs away. At the season of the year when practically all the people of the Pueblo are in the cementerias, it is most interesting to watch the homecoming of the laborers at night. At early dusk they may be seen coming in over the trails leading from the cementerias to the Pueblo in long processions. The boys and girls 5 or 6 years old or more, most of them entirely naked, come playing or dancing along, the boys often marking time by beating a tin can or 2 sticks. Seemingly as full of life as when they started out in the morning. The younger children are toddling by the side of their father or mother, a small, dirty hand smothered in large, labor-cracked one. Or else, are carried on their father's back or shoulder, or perhaps astride their mother's hip. The old men and women, almost always unsightly and ugly, who go to the cemetery only to guard and not to toil, come slowly and feebly home, often picking their way with a staff. There is much laughing and coquetting among the young people. A boy dashes by with several girls in laughing pursuit, and it is not at all likely that he escapes them with all his belongings. Many of the younger, married women carry babies. Some carry on their heads baskets filled with weeds used as food for the pigs, and all have their small rum baskets filled with greens or snails or fish. A man may carry on his shoulder a huge short log of wood cut in the mountains, the wood partially supported on the shoulder by a spear. Or he perhaps carries a large bunch of dry grass to be thrown into the pig pen as bedding. Or he comes swinging along empty-handed save for his spear used as a staff. Most of the returning men and boys carry the empty topo, the small, square, covered basket in which rice for the new meal is carried to the cementera. Sometimes a boy carries a bunch of 3 or 4, and he dangles them open from their strings as he dances along. For an hour or more the procession continues, one almost naked figure following another, all dirty, most of them doubtless tired, and yet seemingly happy and content with the finish of their day of toil. It is long after dark before the last straggler is in. Harvesting. Rice harvesting in Bontoc is a delightful and picturesque sight to an American, and a most serious religious matter to the Igorot. Those ceremonials having to do with agriculture have purposely been omitted from this chapter, yet, since one of the most striking and important features of the harvesting is the harvest ceremonial, it is thought best to introduce it here. Sopho Sab is the name of the ceremony. It is performed in a pathway adjoining each cemetery before a single grain is gathered. In the path, the owner of the field builds a tiny fire beside which he stands, while the harvesters sit in silence. The owner says, Semi Pakapakutamo Isami Sikakin Ponam Nanalang, which, really rendered, means, Pele, when we carry you to the granary, increase greatly so that you will fill it. As soon as the ceremonial is said, the speaker harvests one handful of the grain, after which the laborers arise and begin the harvest. In the trails leading past the cemetery, 2 tall stalks of Runa are planted, and these, called Padai, warn all Igorot that they must not pass the cemetery during the hours of the harvest. nor will they ignore the warning, since if they do they are liable to forfeit a hog or other valuable possession to the owner of the grain. I spent half a day trying to get close enough to a harvesting party to photograph it. All the harvesters were women, and they scolded our party long and severely while we waited 6 or 8 rods distant. My eager boys carrying the photographic outfit, boys who had lived 4 months in my house, laughingly but positively refused to follow me closer than 3 or 4 rods to the Sementera. No photographs were obtained at that time. It was only after the matter was talked over by some of the men of the Pueblo that photographs could be willingly obtained, and the voice of the warning Padaypad was drawn for our party. Even during the time my Igorot boys were in the trail by harvest party, all other Igorot passed around the warning Bruno. The Igorot says he believes the harvest will be blasted, even while being gathered should one pass along a path was skirting any side of the Sementera. Several harvesters, from 4 to a dozen, labor together in each Sementera. They begin at one side and pass across the flat, gathering all grain as they pass. Men and women work together, but women are recognized as better harvesters, since their hands are more nimble. Each fruited stalk is grasped shortly below the fruit head and the upper section or joint of the stalk, together with the fruit head and topmost leaf, is pulled up. As most on-top Igorot are right-handed, the plucked grain is laid in the left hand, the fruit heads projecting beyond between the thumb and forefinger, while the leaf attached to each fruit head lies outside and below the thumb. When the proper amount of grain is in hand, a bunch of stalks, about an inch in diameter, the useless leaves, all arranged for one grasp of the right hand, are stripped off and dropped. The bunch of fruit heads, topping a 6-inch section of clean stalk or straws, handed to a person who may be called a binder. This person in all harvests I have seen was a woman. She binds all the grain 3, 4, or 5 persons can pluck. And when there is one binder for every 3 gatherers, the binder finds some time also together. The binder passes a small, prepared strip of bamboo twice around the pele stalks, holds one end between her teeth and draws the binding tight. Then she twists the 2 ends together, and the bunch is secure. The bunch, the manager of the Spaniard, the symphony of the Igorot, is then bound upon the binder's head until a load is made. Before each bunch is placed on the pile, the fruit heads are spread out like an open fan. These piles are never completed until they are higher than the woman's arm can reach, several of the last bunches being tossed in place, guided only by the tips of the fingers, touching the butt of the straw. The women with their hands loaded, high with ripened grain, are striking figures, and one wonders at the security of the loads. When a load is made, it is borne to the transportation baskets in some part of the harvested section of the Sementera, where it is gently slid to the earth over the front of the head as the woman stoops forward. It is loaded into the basket at once unless there is a scarcity of binders in the field, in which case it awaits the completion of the harvest. In all agricultural labors the Igorot is industrious, yet his humor, ever present with him, brings relief from continued toil. The harvest field is no exception, since there is much quiet gossip and jest during the labors. In 1903 rice was first harvested May 2nd. The harvest continued 1 month, the crop of the Sementera being gathered here and there as it ripened. The Igorot calls his first harvest month the moon of the small harvest. During June the crop is ripened everywhere, and the harvest is on in earnest. The Igorot speaks of it as the moon of the all harvest. I have no view of the harvest of millet or maize. However, I have seen in the Pueblo much of each grain of some previous harvest. The millet, I am told, is harvested similarly to the rice, and the clean-stalked bunches are tied up in the same way, only the bunches are 4 or 5 times larger. The fruit head, or ears, of the maize is said to be plucked off the stalks in the fields as the American farmer gathers green corn or seed corn. It is stored still covered with its husk. The camote harvest is continued fairly well throughout the year. Undoubtedly some camotes are dug every day in the year from the dry mountainside cementeras, but the regular harvest occurs during November and December, during which time the camotes are gathered from the irrigated cementeras preparatory to turning the soil for the transplanting of new rice. Women are the camote gatherers. I never saw men, nor even boys, gathering camotes. At no other time does the Igorot woman look so animal-like as when she toils among the camote vines, standing with legs straight and feet spread, her body held horizontal, one hand grasping the middle of her short camote stick and the other in the soil, picking out the unearthed camotes. She looks as though she never had stood erect and never would stand erect on 2 feet. Thus she toils day after day from early morning till dusk that she and her family may eat. Story. No pele is carried to the Alang, the separate granary building, or to the dwelling for the purpose of being stored until the entire crop of the sementera is harvested. It may be carried partway, but there it halts until all the grain is ready to be carried home. It is spread out on the ground or on the roof in the sun 2 or 3 days to dry before storing. When the grain is to be stored away, an old man, any man, asks a blessing on it that it may make men, hogs, and chickens well, strong, and fat when they consume it. This ceremony is called Kafo-Kap, and the man who performs it is known by the title of Inkalpa. The Igorot granary, the Alang, is a hip-roofed structure about 8 feet long, 5 wide, 4 feet high at the sides and 6 at the ridge pole. Its sides are built with heavy pine planks, which are inserted in grooved, horizontal timbers, the planks being set up vertically. The floor is about a foot from the earth. The roof consists of a heavy, thick cover of long grass securely tied on a pole frame. It is seldom that a granary stands alone. Usually there are 2 or more together, and Baldock has several groups of a dozen each, as shown in PL. LXXAI. When built together they are better protected from the rainstorms. The roofs also are made so they extend close to the earth, thus almost entirely protecting the sides of the structure from the storms. All cracks are carefully filled with pieces of wood wedged and driven in. Even the door, consisting of 2 or 3 vertical planks set in roofed timbers, is laboriously wedged the same way. The building is waterproof, and, because of its wide, projecting roof and the fact that it sets off the earth, it is practically moisture-proof. Most pele is stored in the granaries in the small bunches tied at harvest. The Alang is carefully closed again after each sementera crop has been put in. There are granaries in Bontoc which have not been opened, it is said, in 8 or more years, except to receive additional crops of pele, and yet the grain is as perfectly preserved as when first stored. Some pele, especially that needed for consumption within a reasonable time, is stored in the upper part of the family dwelling. Maize and millet are generally stored in the dwelling, in the 2nd and 3rd stories, since not enough of either is grown to fill an Alang, it is said. Camotes are sometimes stored in the granary after the harvest of the irrigated fields. Often they are put away in the kapka, the 2 compartments at either end of the sleeping room on the ground floor of the dwelling. At other times one sees bushels of camotes put away on the earth under the broad bench extending the full length of the dwelling. In the poorer class of dwellings the camotes are frequently dumped in a corner. Beans are dried and shelled before storing and are set away in a covered basket, usually in the upper part of the dwelling. Only 1 or 2 cargoes are grown by each family, so little space is needed for storage. Since rice is the staple food and may be preserved almost indefinitely, the Igorot has developed a means in place to care for it. Maize and millet, while probably capable of as long preservation, are generally not grown in sufficient quantity to require more storage space than the upper part of the dwelling affords. The Igorot has not developed a way to preserve his camotes long after harvest. They are readily perishable, consequently no place has been differentiated as storehouse. Expense and profit. An irrigated cementer is 60 by 100 feet, having 6,000 square feet of surface, is valued at 2 carbolos, or, in money, about 100 pesos. It produces an average annual crop of 10 cargoes of pele, each worth 1 peso. Thus there is an annual gross profit of 10% on the value of the permanent investment. It requires 10 men one day to turn the soil and fertilize the plant. The wage paid in Kenya is equivalent to 5 cents per laborer, or 50 cents. 5 women can transplant the rice in one day. Cost, 25 cents. Cultivating and protecting the crop falls to the members of the family which owns the sementera, so the Igorot say. He claims never to have to pay for such labor. 20 people can harvest the crop in a day. Cost, 1 peso. The total annual expense of maintaining the sementera as a productive property is, therefore, equivalent to 1.75 pesos. This leaves 8.25 pesos net profit when the annual expense is deducted from the annual gross profit. A net profit of 8.25% is about equivalent to the profit made on the 10,000-acre Bonanza Green Farms in the valley of the Red River of the North and the 5,000-acre corn farm of Iowa. Zooculture. The Carabao, hog, chicken, and dog are the only animals domesticated by the Igorot of the Bontoc culture area. Cattle are kept by Benguet Igorot throughout the extent of the province. Some towns, as Kabayan, have 300 or 400 head, but the Bontoc Igorot has not yet become a cattle raiser. In Benguet, Lepanto, and Abra there are Pugus with half 100 brood mares. Declan, of Benguet, has such a bunch, and other Pueblos have smaller herds. In Bontoc province between Bontoc Pueblo and Lepanto province a few mares have recently been brought in. Sagada and Titapan each have half a dozen. Near the east side of the Bontoc area there are a few bunches of horses reported among the Igorot, and in February 1903, an American brought 16 head from there into Bontoc. These horses are all descendants of previous domestic animals, and an addition of half 100 is said to have been made to the number by horses abandoned by the insurgents about 3 years past. Some of the 16 brought out in 1903 bore saddle marks and the brands common in the coastwise lands. These eastern horses are not used by the Igorot except for food, and no property right is recognized in them, though the Igorot brands them with a battle axe brand. He exercises about as much protecting control over them as the Bontoc man does over the wild Carabao. The people of Bontoc say that when the Mike came to Bontoc they had no domestic Carabaos, that those they know of were originally purchased before the Spaniards came from the Tingian of Abra province. There are in the neighborhood of 400 domestic Carabaos owned in Bontoc and Smoky. Most of them run half wild in the mountains encircling the Pueblos. Such as are in the mountains receive neither herding attention in breeding, feed, nor salt from their owners. The young are dropped in February and March, and their owners mark them by slitting the ear, each person recognizing his own by the mark. A herd of 17, consisting of animals belonging to 5 owners, ranges in the river bottom and among the 7 tiers close to Bontoc. These animals are more tame than those of the mountains, but receive little more attention, except that they are taught to perform a certain unique labor in preparing the sementeras for rice, as has been noted in the section on agriculture. This is the only use to which the Bontoc Carabao is put as a power in industry. He is seldom sold outside the Pueblo and is raised for consumption, chiefly on various ceremonial occasions. 4 men in Bontoc own 50 Carabaos each. 3 others have a herd of 30 in joint ownership. Others own 5 and 6 each, and again a single Carabao may be the joint property of 2 and even 6 individuals. Carabaos are valued at from 40 pesos to 70 pesos. Hog. Bontoc has no record of the time or manner of first acquiring a hog, chicken, or dog. The people say they had all 3 when the mob came. 60 or 70% of the pigs littered in Bontoc are marked lengthwise with alternate stripes of brick red or yellowish hair, the other hair being black or white. The young of the wild hog is marked the same. All the pigs, both domestic and wild, outgrow this red or yellow marking at about the age of 6 months, and when they are a year old become fine-looking black hogs with white marking not unlike the brochure of the States. There is no chance to doubt that the Eagle-Oak domestic hog was the wild hog in the surrounding mountains a few generations ago. The Bontoc hog is bred, born, and raised in a secure pen, yet while blood is infused direct, dense pigs are frequently purchased by Bontoc from surrounding food lists, most of whose hogs run half-wild and intermingle with the wild ones of the mountains. That the domestic hog in some places in northern Luzon does thus interbreed with the wild ones is a proved fact. In the Quayangan area I was shown a litter of half-breeds and was told that it was customary for the Pueblosos to breed to the wild boar of the mountains. The Bontoc hog in many ways is a pampered pet. He is at all times kept in a pen and fed regularly 3 times each day with camote vines, when in season, with camote parings, and small camotes available, and with green vegetable matter, including costlies, gathered by the girls and women when there are no camote vines. All of his food is carefully washed and cooked before it is given to him. The pigsty consists of a pit in the earth about 4 feet deep, 5 or 6 feet wide, and 8 or 12 feet long. It is entirely lined with boulders, and the floor space consists of 3 sections of about equal size. One end is 2 or more feet deeper than the other, and it is into this lower space that the washings of the pen are stored in, the rotted straw and weeds, and from which the manure for fertilizer is taken. The other end is covered over level with the outside earth, with timbers, stones, and dirt. It is the pig's bed and is entered by a doorway in the stone wall. Most of these beds have a low grass roof about 30 inches high over them. Underneath the roof is an opening in the earth where the people defecate. Connecting the bed section and the opposite lower section of the sty is an incline on which the stone feed troughs are located. As soon as a pig is weaned, he is kept in a separate pen, and one family may have in its charge 3 or 4 pens. The sows are kept mainly for breeding, and there are many several years old. The richest man in Bontoc owns about 30 hogs, and these are farmed out for feeding and breeding, a common practice. When one is killed, it is divided equally between the owner and the feeder. When a litter of pigs is produced, the bunch is divided equally, the sow remaining the property of the owner and counting as one in the division. Throughout the island of Luzon, it is the practice to leave most male animals uncastrated. But in Bontoc, the boar not intended for breeding is castrated. Hogs are raised for ceremonial consumption. They are commonly bought and sold within the pueblo, and are not infrequently sold outside. A pig weighing 10 pounds is worth about 3 pesos, and a hog weighing 60 or 70 pounds is valued at about 12 pesos. Chicken. The Bontoc domestic chickens were originally the wild fowl found in all places in the archipelago, although some of them have acquired varied colorings and markings, largely, probably, from black and white Spanish fowl, which are still found among them. The markings of the wild fowl, however, are the most common, and practically all small chickens are marked as either wildkin. The wild fowl bears markings similar to those of the American black-breasted red game, though the fowls are smaller than the American game fowl. Each of the 12 wild cocks I have had in my hands have perfect 5-pointed, single combs, and the domestic cock of Bontoc also commonly has this perfect comb. I know of no people within the Bontoc area who now systematically domesticate the wild fowl, though this was found to be the custom of the Iloilo southeast of Tupac in the province of Nueva Vizcaya. Those people catch the young wild fowl for domestication. The Bontoc domestic fowl are not confined in a coop except at night, when they sleep in small cages placed on the ground in the dwelling houses. In the daytime they range about the pueblo, feeding much in the pig pens, though they are fed a small amount of raw rice each morning. Their nests are in baskets secured under the eaves of the dwelling, and in those baskets the brooding hens hatch their chicks, from 8 to 20 eggs being given a hen. The fowl is raised exclusively for ceremonial consumption, and is frequently sold in the pueblo for that purpose, being valued at from half a peso to a peso each. A wild fowl sells for half a peso. In Banawi of the Quayangan area, south of Bontoc, one may find large capons, but Bontoc does not understand caponizing. Dog. The dog of the Bontoc Igorot is usually of a solid color, black, white, or yellow, really buckskin color. Where he originated is not known. He has none of the marks of the Asiatic dog which has left its impress everywhere in the lowlands of the west coast of Luzon, called in the islands the Chino dog, and in the States the Eskimo dog. The Igorot dog is short-haired, sharp-eared, gaunt, and sinewy, with long legs and body. In height and length he ranges from a fair-sized fox terrier to a collie. I fail to see anything in him resembling the Australian dingo or the yellow cur of the States. The Ibilo have the same dog in two colors, the black and the brindle, the brown and black striped. In fact, a dog of the same general characteristics occurs throughout northern Luzon. No matter what may be his origin, a dog so widely diffused and so characteristically molded and marked must have been on the island long enough to have acquired its typical features here. The dog receives little attention from his owners. Twice each day he is fed sparingly with cooked rice or camotes. Except in the case of the few hunting dogs, he does nothing to justify his existence. He lies about the dwelling most of the time, and is a surly, more or less evil-tempered cur to strangers, though, when a pueblo flees to the mountains from its attacking enemies, the dog escapes in a spiritless way with the women and children. He is bred mainly for ceremonial consumption. In Bengal, the Igorot eats his dog only after it has been reduced to skin and bones. I saw two in a house so poor that they did not raise their heads when I entered, and the man of the house said they would be kept 20 days longer before they would be reduced properly for eating. No such custom exists in Bontoc. The dogs are seldom fat when eaten. They are not often bought or sold outside the pueblo. A litter of cubs is generally distributed about the town, and dogs are constantly bought and sold within the pueblo for ceremonial purposes. They are valued at from 2 pesos to 4 pesos. Clothing production. Men's clothing. Up to the age of 6 or 7 years, the Igorot boys are as naked as when born. At that time they put on the saklayang, the basket work hat, worn on the back of the head, held in place by a cord attached at both sides and passing across the forehead and usually hidden by the front hair. The saklayang is made in nearly all pueblos in the Bontoc culture area. It does not extend uninterruptedly to the western border, however, since it is not worn at all in Agawa, and in some other pueblos near the Lipano border, as Fitlasan and Genugan, it has a rival in the headband. The beaten bark headband, called a pongot, and the headband of cloth are worn by short-haired men, while the long-haired man invariably wears the hat. The saklayang varies in shape from the Fesitino out of Bontoc and Smoky, through various hemispherical forms, to the low, flat hats developing eastward and perfected in the last mountains west of the Rio Grande do Cagayan. Barlig makes and wears a carved wooden hat, either hemispherical or slightly oval. It goes in trade to Ambawan. The men of the Bontoc area also have a basket work, conical rain hat. It is waterproof, being covered with beeswax. It is called sekfai and is worn only when it rains, at which time the saklayang is often not removed. About the age of 10 the boys frequently affect a girdle. These girdles are of 4 varieties. The one most common in Bontoc and Smoky is the songkitin, made of braided bark fiber strings, some 6 to 12 in number and about 12 feet long. They are doubled, and so make the girdle about 6 feet in length. The strings are the twisted inner bark of the same plants that play a large role in the manufacture of the woman's skirt. This girdle is usually worn twice around the body, though it is also employed as an apron, passing only once around the body and hanging down over the genitals, CPL. XXI. Another girdle, worn much in Tukukan, Kanu, and Tuluban is called the Akit. It is made of 6 to 12 braided strings of Bejico, CPL. LXXX. It is constructed to fit the waist, has loops at both ends, passes once around the body, and fastens by a cord passing from one loop to the other. Both the Sankitan and the Akit are made by the women. A third class of girdles is made by the men. It is called Kalkat, and is worn and attached quite as a CI kit. It is a twisted rope of Bajico, often an inch in diameter, and is much worn and mounted. A fourth girdle, called Ka-chain, is a chain, frequently a dog chain, of iron purchased on the coast, often a chain manufactured by the men, and consisting of large, open links of commercial brass wire, about 1/6 of an inch in diameter. At about the age of puberty, say at 15, it is usual for the boy to possess a breechcloth or walrus. However, the cloth is worn by a large percent of men in Bontoc and Saloki, not as a breechcloth but tucked under the girdle and hanging in front simply as an apron. Within the Bontoc area, fully 50% of the men wear the breechcloth simply as an apron. There are several varieties of breechcloths in the area. The simplest of these is a flayed tree bark. It is made by women in Barlik, Chalupan, Titipan, Agawa, and other Pueblos. It is made of white and reddish-brown bark, and sometimes the white ones are colored with red ochre. The white one is called sopot and the red one, tinanag. Some of the other breechcloths are woven of cotton, read by the women. Much of this cotton is claimed by the Igorot to be tree cotton which they gather, spin and weave, but much also comes in trade from the Ilocano at the coast. Some is purchased in the mold and some is purchased after it has been spun and colored. Many breechcloths are now bought ready-made from the Ilocano. Men generally carry a bag tucked under the girdle, and very often, indeed these bags are worn in lieu of the breechcloth aprons, the girdle and the bag apron being the only clothing, CPL. CXXBN, also frontispiece, where, from left to right, face 1, 2, 3, 5, and 7, were simply a bag. One of the bags commonly worn is the Phai Chong, the bladder of the hog. The other, Shopao, is a cloth bag some 8 inches wide and 15 inches long. These cloth bags are woven in most of the Pueblos where the cotton breechcloth is made. Old men now and then wear a blanket, haite, but the younger men never do. They say a blanket is for the women. Some few of the principal men in many of the Pueblos throughout the area have in late years acquired either the army blue woolen shirt, a cotton shirt, or a thin coat, and these they wear during the cold storms of January and February, and on special social occasions. During the period of preparing the soil for transplanting pele, the men frequently wear nothing at the middle except the girdle. In and out of the Pueblo they work, carrying loads of manure from the hog pens to the fields, apparently as little concerned or noticed as though they wore their breechcloths. All Igorot, men, women, and children, sleep without breechcloth, skirt, or jacket. If the woman owns a blanket, she uses it as a covering when the nights are cold. All wear basket work nightcaps, called katlao. They are made to fit closely on the head and have a small opening at the top. They may be worn to keep the hair from snarling, though I was unable to get any reason from the Igorot for their use, save that they were worn by their ancestors. Women's clothing. From infancy to the age of 8 and very often 10 years, the little girls are naked. Not unfrequently one sees about the Pueblo a girl of a dozen years entirely nude. However, practically all girls from about 5 years, and also all women, have blankets which are worn when it is cold, as almost invariably after sundown, though no pretense is made to cover their nakedness with them. During the day this paite, or blanket, is seldom worn except in the dance. I have never seen women or girls dance without it. The blankets of the girls are usually small and white with a blue stripe down each side and through the middle. They are called katpa. Those of the women are of 4 kinds: the tinapai, the fanyong, the fanshila, and the pinag pagan. In Barlik, Agawa, and Chalupan the flayed tree bark blanket is worn. And in Kambula, east of Barlik, woven bark fiber blankets are made which sometimes come to Bontoc. Before a girl puts on her lufed, or woven bark fiber skirt, at about 8 or 10 years of age, she at times wears simply the narrow girdle, later worn to hold up the skirt. The skirt is both short and narrow. It usually extends from below the navel to near the knees. It opens on the side and is frequently so scant and narrow that one leg is exposed as the person walks, the only part of the body covered on that side being under the girdle, or wachis, a woven band about 4 inches wide passing twice around the body, CPL. XXIII. The women sometimes wear the braided string bajigo belt, a kit, worn by the men. The lufit and the wachis are the extent of women's ordinary clothing. For some months after the mother gives birth to a child, she wears an extra wachis wrapped tightly about her, over which the skirt is worn as usual. During the last few weeks of pregnancy, the woman may leave off her skirt entirely, wearing simply her blanket over one shoulder and about her body. Women wear breechcloths during the 3 or 4 days of menstruation. During the period when the water-soaked soil of the sementera is turned for transplanting pele, the women engaged in such labor generally lay aside their skirts. Sometimes they retain a girdle and tuck an apron of camote leaves or of weeds under it before and behind. I have frequently come upon women entirely naked climbing up and down the steep stone dikes of their sementeras while weeding them, and also at the clay pits where Sinoki women get their earth for making pottery. In May 1903, it rained hard every afternoon for 2 or 3 hours in Bontoc, Pueblo, and at such times the women out of doors uniformly removed their clothing. They worked in the fields and went from the fields to their dwellings nude, wearing on their heads while in the trail either their long basket rain protector or head covering of camote vines, under which reposed their skirts in an effort to keep them dry. Sometimes while passing our house en route from the field to the Pueblo, the women wore the girdle with the camote vine apron, called pepe. Often no girdle was worn, but the women held a small bunch of leaves against the body in lieu of an attached apron. Sometimes, however, their hands were occupied with their burdens, and their nudity seemed not to trouble them in the least. The women remove their skirts, they say, because they usually possess only one at a time, and they prefer to go naked in the rain and while working in the wet sementeras rather than sit in a wet skirt when they reach home. Few women in the Bontoc area wear jackets or waists. Those to the west, toward the province of Lepanto, frequently wear short ones, open in front without fastening, and having quarter sleeves. Those women also wear somewhat longer skirts than do the Bontoc women. In Ogawa, and nearby Pueblos to the west, and in Barlik and vicinity to the east, the women make and wear fleet bark jackets and skirts. From Barlik bark jackets for women come in trade to Tuluban. They are not simply sheets of bark, but the bark is strengthened by a coarse reinforcement of work sewed or quilted. Many of the women's skirts and girdles woven west of Bontoc Pueblo are made also of the Ilocano cotton. The skirts and girdles of Bontoc Pueblo and those found commonly eastward are entirely of Igorot production. 4 varieties of plants yield the threads. The inner bark is gathered and then spun or twisted on the naked side under the palm of the hand, CPL. All weaving in Igorot land is done by the woman with the simplest kind of loom, such as is scattered the world over among primitive people. It is well shown in PL. LXXXIV, which is a photograph of a Lepanto Igorot loom. Implement and utensil production. Introduction. It is only after one has brought together all the implements and utensils of an Igorot Pueblo that he realizes the large part played in it by basket work. Were basketry and pottery cut from the list of his production, the Igorot's everyday labors would be performed with bare hands and crude sticks. Whereas the Igorot Stone Age, there are stone hammers and stones used as anvils in the ironsmith shop. There are stone troughs or bowls and most pig pens in which the animal's food is placed. Very rarely, as in the Quangan area, one sees a large, flat stone supported a foot or 2 from the earth by other stones. It is used as a bench or table, but has no special purpose. There are wood stones for sharpening the steel spear and battle axe. There is the stone of the flint and steel fire machine. And of course stones are employed as seats, in constructing terrace walls, in dams, and in the building of various inhabited structures, but that is all. There is no Stone Age, no memory of it, and if the people were swept away today, tomorrow would reveal no trace of it. It is believed that the Eorot is today as much in the Stone Age as he ever has been in his present land. He had little use for stone weapons, implements, or utensils before he manufactured in iron. Before he had iron, he was essentially a user and maker of weapons, implements, utensils, and tools of wood. There are many vestiges of the Wood Age today. Several show the use of wood for purposes usually thought of as only within the sphere of stone and metal. Among these vestiges may be noted the bamboo knife used in circumcision, the sharp stick employed in the ceremonial killing of domestic hogs in banquet, the bamboo instrument of 10 or a dozen cutting blades, used to shape and dress the hard, wooden spear shafts in battle axe handles, the use of bamboo spearheads attached to hardwood shafts, and the bamboo spikes stuck in trails to impale the enemy. In addition to the above uses of wood for cutting flesh and working, would there follow, in this and subsequent chapters, enough data regarding the uses of wood to demonstrate that the Wood Age plays a large part in the life of a primitive people prior to the common use of metals. Without metals there was practically no occasion for the development of stone weapons and tools in a country with such woods as the bamboo. So in the Philippines we find an order of development different from that widespread in the temperate zones. The Stone Age appears to be omitted. Wooden implements and utensils. The KKPL LXI is one of the most indispensable wooden tools in Igorot land. It is a hardwood implement from 5 to 7 feet long, sharpened to a dull, flat edge at one end. This end is fire-tempered to harden and bind the fibers, thus preventing splitting and excessive wear. The KK is obtained in the mountains in the vicinity of most Kutlas, so it is seldom bought or sold. It is a soil-turning stick, used by both men and women in turning the earth in all irrigated cementeras for rice and camotes. It is also employed in digging around and prying out rocks to be removed from cementeras or needed for walls. It is spade, plow, pickaxe, and crowbar. A small percent of the KK is shot with an iron point, rendering them more efficient, especially in breaking up new or sod ground. The Suwan, the woman's camote stick, is about 2 feet long and 1 inch in diameter. PL LXXV. It is a heavy, compact wood, and is used by the woman until worn down 6 or 8 inches, when it usually becomes the property of a small girl for gathering wild plants for the family pigs. The Suwan of the woman of Bontoc and Simoki comes, mostly in trade, from the mountains near Tululan. It is employed in picking the earth loose in all unirrigated cementeras, as those for camotes, millet, beans, and maize. It is also used to pick over the earth in camote cementeras when the crop is gathered. Perhaps one per cent of these sticks is shot with an iron point.